Before the Fourth Great Ninja War officially began, before armies assembled and banners rose against the horizon, there was already a fracture running quietly through the shinobi world. It had been there for decades, hidden beneath treaties, concealed behind diplomatic smiles, masked by the fragile peace that followed the Third Great Ninja War. The five great nations stood in relative stability, yes, but stability built on exhaustion, not reconciliation. Every village carried memories of betrayal, loss, and calculated violence. The wars had stopped, not because hatred disappeared, but because everyone was too tired to continue. That kind of peace is temporary. The world of Naruto was born in blood. The Warring States period forged the hidden villages as a solution to endless clan warfare. Yet even that solution was imperfect. The founding of the Hidden Leaf was supposed to be the end of chaos, a union of the Senju and the Uchiha under a shared dream. But that dream fractured almost immediately. Distrust never vanished. It simply evolved. Hashirama believed cooperation could overwrite centuries of violence. Madara believed conflict was inevitable. The war that erupts generations later is, in many ways, the echo of that original disagreement. And echoes do not fade quietly. When word spreads that Madara Uchiha has declared war upon the five great nations, it does not feel like a random act of aggression. It feels like history returning. The Akatsuki had already destabilized the world by hunting the tailed beasts, capturing Jinchuriki, and exposing how vulnerable each village truly was. Gaara was kidnapped. Killer Bee targeted. Naruto hunted. The illusion of safety had been shattered long before the first official declaration of war. The Akatsuki proved something terrifying. The balance of power between nations was fragile, and it could be manipulated by a small, coordinated force driven by ideology rather than diplomacy. Obito, operating under Madara's name, understood this deeply. He did not attack blindly. He forced the world into a corner. He revealed the Moon's Eye plan not as a negotiation, but as an ultimatum. Surrender the 8 and 9 tails. Surrender Naruto and Killer Bee, or face annihilation. It was calculated cruelty. He knew the nations would refuse. He needed them unified, not fractured, because the true goal was larger than military victory. It was psychological. For the first time in history, the five Kage stood in the same room, not as rivals, but as reluctant allies. The Raikage's pride, the Tsuchikage's cynicism, the Mizukage's caution, the Kazekage's quiet resolve, and Tsunade's burdened leadership, all of it compressed into a single decision: unite or fall separately. The formation of the Allied Shinobi Forces was historic. Thousands of shinobi from villages that once spilled each other's blood now stood under one banner. But unity born from fear carries tension within it. There were shinobi whose parents had died in past wars at the hands of those now called allies. There were unresolved grudges, quiet resentments, generational scars that no political agreement could erase. The war effort demanded cooperation, but trust does not materialize overnight. The battlefield would force strangers to rely on each other in life or death moments, but beneath that cooperation lingered decades of inherited suspicion. And at the center of it all were Naruto and Killer Bee. Not soldiers in the traditional sense, but living weapons. The tailed beasts had always been treated as tools of deterrence. Villages balanced power by containing monsters within human hosts, children burdened with forces they never chose. Naruto grew up isolated because of it. Gaara was shaped by it. Bee learned to coexist with his beast through discipline and rhythm. Now those same Jinchuriki represented the final pieces Obito needed to complete the Infinite Tsukuyomi. Their existence was no longer symbolic. It was strategic. This is what makes the coming war tragic before it even begins. The children who inherited the consequences of past conflicts are now expected to resolve them. Naruto, barely out of adolescence, is no longer just a loud, determined ninja chasing the title of Hokage. He is the linchpin of the entire world's survival. His capture would mean the end of free will itself. And yet, in the early stages of the war, he is deliberately kept away from the battlefield, hidden on a remote island so that the enemy cannot reach him. Imagine the weight of knowing a war is being fought in your name, and you are not allowed to join it. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Obito prepares something far more insidious than a conventional invasion. Kabuto Yakushi steps into the shadows with Edo Tensei, the reanimation jutsu, offering Obito an army that does not fear death because it has already crossed that threshold. Legendary shinobi, resurrected against their will. Former Kage, long-dead prodigies. Men and women whose names once shaped history. The coming war will not simply be fought between nations. It will be fought between generations, between the living and the unwillingly revived. This is where the inevitability deepens. The shinobi system was always built on child soldiers, clan rivalries, and strategic sacrifice. It glorified loyalty and endurance while quietly normalizing trauma. The Fourth Great Ninja War does not introduce tragedy into the world. It exposes the tragedy that was already there. The reanimated dead are not just weapons. They are reminders. Reminders of previous failures, of unresolved hatred, of cycles that were never truly broken. As the Allied Shinobi Forces assemble, stretching across deserts and forests in organized divisions, there is a solemn atmosphere beneath the discipline. Soldiers write final letters. Commanders memorize formation strategies. Medical teams prepare for casualties they know are inevitable. The sky does not darken dramatically. There is no immediate explosion, just a heavy stillness, like the air before a storm finally breaks. The tragedy of the Fourth Great Ninja War is not that it happened. It is that it had to happen. Decades of unresolved conflict, manipulated by unseen forces, guided by the long shadow of Madara's ideology, converge into one final attempt to reshape the world. Obito believes he is ending suffering. The nations believe they are preserving freedom. Both sides claim peace as the objective. But peace born through illusion is not peace. And peace maintained through endless war is not peace either. Somewhere, quietly, the question lingers. If the shinobi world was built on violence from the beginning, can it ever truly escape it? The war begins not with glory, but with inevitability. And once it starts, it will not only decide the future, it will expose the past. Long before he declared war on the 5 great nations, before he spoke of illusions and infinite dreams, before the mask, before the Sharingan matured into something cold and godlike, Obito Uchiha was a loud, clumsy, overly emotional child who wanted nothing more than acknowledgement. He was not born a prodigy. He was not feared. He was not respected. In a clan that prized natural genius and ocular power, he was average at best, and often worse. He arrived late to missions. He argued loudly. He declared he would become Hokage with the same stubborn optimism that Naruto would one day echo. And just like Naruto, most people did not take him seriously. That parallel is not accidental. Obito grew up in the shadow of Kakashi Hatake, a true prodigy, calm, efficient, talented beyond his years, everything Obito was not. Their rivalry was lopsided from the beginning. Kakashi followed rules with clinical precision. Obito valued bonds over protocol. Kakashi measured worth through mission success. Obito measured it through loyalty. When they clashed, it was not just about skill, it was about philosophy. And yet, beneath the arguments, there was something sincere forming. A team, a fragile connection, a shared youth on battlefields they were far too young to stand upon. And then there was Rin. Rin Nohara was not just a teammate to Obito. She was the axis around which his emotional world revolved. She represented kindness in a system that trained children to kill. She believed in him when others dismissed him. Her encouragement mattered more to him than recognition from the clan. Her smile validated his stubborn belief that he could become something more than what the world assumed. Obito's dream of becoming Hokage was not abstract ambition. It was intertwined with the desire to protect her, to be worthy in her eyes. The Third Great Ninja War was the backdrop of their adolescence. Battles were not rare events. They were routine. The mission to destroy Canopy Bridge should have been just another strategic objective. Instead, it became the fracture point of history. When Obito is crushed beneath the falling rock, half his body destroyed, he does not die immediately. He has time to understand what is happening. Time to see Kakashi's panic. Time to entrust his remaining Sharingan to the rival he once resented. Time to smile, believing that his sacrifice means something noble. He dies thinking he has finally proven his worth. But he does not die. He wakes in darkness. Madara Uchiha finds him, ancient, calculating, patient, a relic of a previous era who has long abandoned faith in the shinobi system. Madara does not immediately preach ideology. He waits. He lets Obito heal. He allows him to mourn. He plants seeds rather than issuing commands. And when the time is right, he shows him the world as he sees it. Broken, cyclical, doomed to repeat suffering endlessly. Obito resists at first. He wants to return. He wants to see Rin and Kakashi again. He wants to resume the fragile hope he left behind. And Madara allows him that illusion of agency. He does not lock him away. He simply lets reality deliver the final blow. When Obito returns to the battlefield and witnesses Rin impaled by Kakashi's Chidori, a killing blow delivered not out of betrayal, but tragic necessity, something inside him collapses beyond repair. He does not see the political manipulation behind it. He does not see the strategic desperation. He sees only blood. Only the girl who believed in him dying by the hand of his closest friend. That moment is the true birth of the war. Because what dies in Obito then is not just love. It is faith. Faith in comrades. Faith in the village. Faith in the system that sent children to slaughter one another under the banner of duty. Madara's ideology suddenly makes sense. If reality produces this much suffering, then reality itself is the problem. The Infinite Tsukuyomi becomes not just a plan, but an escape. It is important to understand that Obito does not initially seek domination. He seeks erasure of pain. The Moon's Eye plan promises a dream world where Rin lives, where Kakashi does not have blood on his hands, where the shinobi system's cruelty is overwritten by illusion. In his grief-stricken logic, forcing everyone into a dream is mercy. It removes choice, yes, but it also removes suffering. This is the tragedy. Obito, who once valued bonds above rules, now decides that autonomy is expendable if it means universal peace. The boy who argued that comrades mattered more than mission success becomes the man willing to sacrifice the entire world's free will to prevent further loss. He adopts Madara's name not just as deception, but as identity. Obito, the child, could not survive what happened. So he becomes Madara, symbol of inevitability, architect of a new world. The mask he wears is not only physical, it is psychological insulation. The orange spiral hides a face still young beneath it, but the voice behind it is stripped of softness. And yet, fragments remain. Throughout the war, there are moments where Naruto's words disturb him, moments where memories of Team Minato surface uninvited. When Naruto insists that bonds are worth protecting, even in a broken world, Obito hesitates. because Naruto is not naive in the way Obito once was. Naruto understands loneliness. He understands rejection. He understands what it means to be dismissed as useless. Naruto is the version of Obito that did not fall. And that parallel is what makes their conflict deeply tragic, rather than purely antagonistic. Obito is not simply evil. He is a cautionary divergence, a path Naruto could have taken had he lost hope at the wrong moment. The fourth great ninja war is built upon that divergence. An entire world mobilizes because one broken boy concluded that reality itself was unacceptable. The scale of destruction is enormous, but at its core lies a grief that was never processed, only weaponized. Obito does not laugh maniacally as armies assemble. He stands quietly, convinced he is ending something unbearable. He believes history will thank him once the dream begins. He believes that free will is overrated if it guarantees suffering. And that belief, born from love, twisted into despair, is what drives the war forward. The tragedy is not that Obito wanted peace. It is that he lost faith in reality's ability to hold it. And so he chose illusion instead. The world now prepares to fight a man who once wanted to protect it. A war ignited not by conquest, but by grief. There is something uniquely cruel about war when it no longer respects the boundary between life and death. When the fourth great ninja war truly begins, it does not open with a single, overwhelming strike. It begins with confusion along the coastlines and borders. White Zetsu infiltrators disguised as allies. Silent assassinations. Paranoia spreading through the Allied Shinobi Forces as no one can fully trust the face beside them. But even that deception is only the prelude. The true horror reveals itself when Kabuto Yakushi unveils Edo Tensei, the reanimation jutsu, and the battlefield fills not with strangers, but with the resurrected past. The technique itself is grotesque in its precision, a living sacrifice, DNA of the deceased, a binding of the soul back into a reconstructed body that does not decay, does not tire, and cannot die by conventional means. It is not resurrection in the spiritual sense. It is conscription. The dead are not returned for closure. They are returned to kill. And so the war becomes something far more intimate. Imagine standing on a battlefield and recognizing the chakra signature approaching you, the unique rhythm of someone you once trained under, a former Kage, a legendary swordsman, a parent, a sibling. Imagine preparing to fight them, knowing they cannot refuse the orders binding them. Their eyes are aware, their minds intact. They speak with the same voice. They remember their lives, but their bodies move against their will. This is not merely combat. It is violation. The Allied Shinobi Forces, organized into divisions based on specialization, sensory units, medical corps, close combat battalions, find themselves facing icons of history. The 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist return to slaughter once more. Former Akatsuki members reappear, their ideologies echoing across the battlefield. Even the 2nd Mizukage and 2nd Tsuchikage, leaders from an era defined by paranoia and destruction, stand again beneath open skies they thought they had left behind forever. The psychological weight is immense. Shinobi are trained to suppress emotion during missions. They are conditioned to treat targets as objectives. But how do you treat your former teacher as an objective? How do you seal away someone who once guided your first steps as a ninja? The battlefield forces young shinobi to confront not just physical threats, but unresolved grief. Conversations unfold mid-combat. Apologies exchanged between strikes, regrets voiced before sealing. Techniques take effect. The war becomes a dialogue between generations. There is something haunting about the Edo Tensei bodies themselves. They regenerate from any wound, paper-like fragments reforming flesh and bone with mechanical inevitability. Blades pass through torsos that stitch back together seconds later. Explosive tags tear apart limbs that reform before the smoke clears. The living grow exhausted. The dead do not. Kabuto's strategy is not just tactical superiority, it is emotional attrition. He understands that forcing the Allied Shinobi Forces to fight their predecessors will fracture morale. He exploits history itself. He weaponizes legacy. The great shinobi of the past, once revered in textbooks and memorials, now march as instruments of despair. But within this horror lies something quieter. The reanimated shinobi are not mindless. Many retain awareness of the atrocities they are being compelled to commit. Some subtly sabotage their own movements. Some warn their opponents of weaknesses. Others express regret for the world they helped shape, a world still trapped in cycles of war decades after their deaths. Take, for example, the confrontation between the resurrected Third Raikage and his son's generation. The third was known as an indestructible force, a man whose physical resilience rivaled the tailed beasts themselves. Now he stands as an obstacle his own village must overcome. His strength, once a symbol of protection, becomes a test. The son must analyze the father, must find the flaw, must strike decisively. Growth through confrontation, closure through combat. This pattern repeats across battlefields. The 2nd Mizukage laughs as he fights, amused by the evolution of shinobi techniques. The 2nd Tsuchikage acknowledges the stubborn endurance of the younger generation, even as he attempts to annihilate them. These are not caricatures of villains. They are remnants of an era that believed their violence was necessary for stability. And perhaps it was. That is what complicates everything. The shinobi world did not produce monsters randomly. It produced products of their time, leaders who made ruthless decisions because survival demanded it, villages that weaponized children because they feared annihilation. The Edo Tensei forces embody the consequences of that history. They are not external invaders. They are reflections. Meanwhile, the Allied Shinobi Forces begin adapting. Sealing teams coordinate with sensory units. Strategy evolves in real time. Bonds form under pressure. Shinobi from rival villages save one another without hesitation. The war forces cooperation in a way diplomacy never fully could. Shared trauma becomes shared understanding. And yet, casualties mount. Unlike the reanimated forces, the living do not regenerate. When a shinobi falls, they fall permanently. Their bodies remain on the earth, while their enemies rise again moments later. The imbalance creates a suffocating sense of inevitability. Victory feels impossible when the opponent cannot die. This is the cruel irony. The war meant to preserve the future begins by resurrecting the past. And the past is relentless. Somewhere beyond the chaos, Kabuto watches with detached fascination. He does not fight out of ideology like Obito. He fights out of curiosity, a desire to prove his own existence matters, to step out from Orochimaru's shadow, to control history itself. In reanimating the dead, he convinces himself he has transcended ordinary human limitation. But even he underestimates something: the will of the resurrected. Because slowly, subtly, cracks begin forming in the control. Emotions leak through the binding. Conversations spark doubt. And as the war escalates, one particular reanimation will disrupt Kabuto's careful orchestration entirely. A man who understood sacrifice more deeply than most. A man whose presence reshapes the battlefield, not through brute force, but through quiet clarity. But that is for the next part. For now, the war continues under a sky crowded with ghosts. The living bleed, the dead march, and history refuses to stay buried. Among all the reanimated shinobi forced back onto the battlefield, there is one whose presence carries a different weight. Not because of raw, destructive power, not because of battlefield dominance, but because of what he represents: sacrifice misunderstood, loyalty distorted, and a life defined by quiet suffering. Itachi Uchiha returns not as a conqueror, but as a contradiction. When Kabuto summons him through Edo Tensei, Itachi emerges with the same calm composure he held in life. His cloak falls neatly around him. His eyes, eternally marked by the Sharingan, observe the world without panic. Unlike many of the other resurrected shinobi, Itachi does not lash out or panic at his condition. He understands immediately what has happened. He assesses. He adapts. Even in death, he is strategic. And this is what makes his presence so quietly powerful. Itachi had already died once, by his own design. His battle with Sasuke was not simply a duel between brothers. It was a carefully constructed narrative. He allowed himself to be killed so that Sasuke would awaken strength free from suspicion. He chose to die, branded as a villain, to protect the fragile stability of the hidden leaf. He carried the massacre of his own clan on his shoulders, accepted hatred, accepted isolation, accepted infamy, all so that war would not erupt again between the Uchiha and the village. And yet, here it is. War, larger than ever. His sacrifice did not prevent it. There is a quiet tragedy in that realization. When Itachi encounters Naruto on the battlefield, the moment is not explosive. It is almost gentle. Naruto does not see a monster. He sees Sasuke's older brother, a man whose story he has only recently begun to understand. Their conversation, brief but layered, centers not on strategy, but on responsibility. Itachi entrusts Naruto with Sasuke's future. He acknowledges Naruto's capacity to carry burdens without collapsing beneath them. Itachi sees something in Naruto that he once hoped Sasuke would embody, and perhaps something he himself never allowed himself to be: open. The war continues raging around them, explosions tearing across the landscape, reanimated shinobi clashing with divisions of the Allied forces. But Itachi's focus shifts quickly. Kabuto is the key. The source of the Edo Tensei technique must be stopped. Unlike others bound by Kabuto's control, Itachi does not remain a puppet for long. Using Shisui's implanted eye and the power of Koto Amatsukami, he overrides the control placed upon him. In a war defined by manipulation, Itachi quietly frees himself, and immediately chooses to end the jutsu that binds so many others. This is where action and philosophy intertwine. Itachi confronts Kabuto not with reckless aggression, but with precision. Deep within a cavernous battlefield, carved by earth-shattering techniques, Sasuke joins him. For the first time since childhood, the two brothers fight side by side. Their movements synchronize naturally, a choreography forged through shared blood and shared trauma. Fire-style techniques ignite the darkness. Susanoo manifests in towering, spectral armor. Blades clash against serpentine transformations as Kabuto twists his body with stolen abilities. The battle is visually spectacular, light reflecting off stone, chakra flaring in violent arcs. But beneath the spectacle lies something far more significant. Itachi refuses to kill Kabuto. Instead, he traps him within Izanami, a genjutsu designed not to destroy, but to force self-reflection. Over and over, Kabuto relives the same sequence until he confronts his own identity crisis. Itachi understands something profound. Ending the war requires more than defeating enemies. It requires breaking the cycle of individuals losing themselves in pursuit of validation and control. Kabuto, like Obito, like even Madara, is a product of insecurity amplified by power. And Itachi, who once lost himself to duty so completely that he became a villain in his own story, recognizes the pattern. During the battle, Sasuke questions him. Why bear the burden alone? Why not trust others? why not reveal the truth? Itachi's answers are not defensive. They are regretful. He admits his mistakes openly. He acknowledges that trying to shoulder everything himself created further distortion. His silence protected the village, but it isolated Sasuke and fueled his hatred. This is Itachi's quiet evolution. Even in death, he learns. The war outside continues to escalate, divisions collapsing under the weight of powerful reanimations, shinobi pushing beyond their limits. But inside that cavern, something shifts at the core of the conflict. The Edo Tensei technique, the very engine driving despair across the battlefield, begins to unravel as Kabuto breaks free from his own delusion. One by one, the reanimated shinobi begin dissolving into light. On battlefields scattered across continents, soldiers watch as the enemies they struggled endlessly against start to crumble into ash-like fragments. Conversations cut short. Final words spoken. Apologies completed. Closure granted where possible. The dead are finally allowed to rest. Itachi, too, begins to fade. But before he does, he turns to Sasuke. There is no grand speech, no dramatic redemption arc, just honesty. He tells Sasuke he will love him always, regardless of what path he chooses. It is not an attempt to control him, not an instruction, not a manipulation, just truth. And then he vanishes. In a war filled with overwhelming force and apocalyptic stakes, Itachi's final act is quiet correction. He does not end the war. He does not defeat the mastermind behind it, but he removes one layer of suffering. He frees the dead from exploitation. He leaves behind clarity instead of confusion. His life was defined by burden, his death by release. And in the vast scale of the Fourth Great Ninja War, that small shift from manipulation to reflection, from secrecy to honesty, becomes one of the few moments where the cycle briefly falters. Outside the cavern, the war does not stop. Madara still stands. Obito still believes in illusion. The Allied forces are still outmatched. But the ghosts have returned to silence. And for the first time since the war began, the battlefield feels lighter, only for a moment, before something far heavier arrives. When Madara Uchiha steps onto the battlefield, the war changes shape. Until this moment, the Allied Shinobi Forces had been fighting strategically, coordinating divisions, countering reanimated legends, adapting to white Zetsu infiltration. There was exhaustion, yes. Casualties, certainly. But there was still a sense of structure, a belief that through cooperation and discipline, victory remained possible. Madara erases that belief in minutes. He does not arrive in a blaze of chaos. He descends almost casually, reanimated, composed, surveying the battlefield with faint amusement. Before him stands an entire division of the Allied Shinobi Forces, thousands of shinobi from every great nation, unified for the first time in history. They brace themselves, weapons drawn, chakra flaring. Some have studied his legend in textbooks. Some only know the name as myth. Rival of Hashirama Senju, co-founder of the Hidden Leaf, ghost of the warring states. Now the myth breathes. The first wave attacks him with coordination. Earth-style walls, water-style torrents, volleys of kunai, and explosive tags. It is disciplined, impressive, united. Madara does not dodge. He steps forward and unleashes a single fire technique, fire style. Majestic destroyer flame. A torrent so vast it dwarfs the combined water-style countermeasures meant to suppress it. Flames surge across the battlefield like a tidal wave, forcing entire platoons into defensive retreat. Smoke swallows formations. The ground fractures under heat. And Madara smiles. This is not just power. It is scale. He does not fight individuals. He fights armies as if they are singular obstacles. He weaves hand signs with relaxed efficiency. Meteorites fall from the sky at his command, enormous masses of stone descending with catastrophic inevitability. The first meteor crashes, shattering terrain and obliterating defenses. The Allied forces barely survive by combining every Earth-style technique available to cushion the impact. And then they look up. There is a second meteor. The symbolism is cruel. The first disaster strains every resource. The second tests whether hope can survive inevitability. The Allied Shinobi Forces throw everything upward. Chakra reserves draining, bodies trembling, and barely manage to survive again. Dust fills the sky. Craters reshape the earth. Madara stands untouched. This is not a battle in the traditional sense. It is a demonstration. He moves through shinobi ranks with taijutsu alone at times, disarming, deflecting, striking with precision that feels almost effortless. He uses their momentum against them. He dissects formations mid-combat. There is something deeply unsettling about how calm he remains. No rage, no desperation, only detached curiosity. He asks them if they would prefer his clones to use Susanoo or not. And then he manifests multiple Susanoo constructs simultaneously, towering armored warriors made of chakra, each wielding devastating blades capable of cleaving entire sections of terrain. The battlefield becomes fragmented under their swings. Shockwaves ripple outward with every strike. Shinobi scatter. Defensive barriers shatter. For the first time since the war began, unity feels small. Madara is not merely overpowering them physically. He is invalidating their combined strength. The entire premise of the Allied Shinobi Forces, that cooperation can overcome any enemy, wavers under the sheer magnitude of his presence. But Madara is not fighting for dominance alone. He is proving a point. To him, the shinobi system is fundamentally flawed. Villages rise and fall. Wars erupt and pause. Hatred transfers from one generation to the next, like inheritance. He witnessed this during the Warring States period. He watched children die in endless clan conflicts. He allied with Hashirama to create a new structure, believing perhaps it would change things. It did not. Even the hidden leaf, his own creation, turned against his clan eventually. Suspicion replaced trust. Surveillance replaced cooperation. The Uchiha were isolated, a fracture that would one day culminate in massacre. To Madara, the experiment failed. The shinobi world cannot escape conflict because human nature clings to fear and competition, so he concluded something radical. If reality produces suffering endlessly, then reality must be replaced. The Infinite Tsukuyomi is not, in his mind, tyranny. It is correction, a dream world where conflict dissolves because desire is satisfied universally. No ambition to clash, no grief to avenge, no jealousy to fester. Illusion as mercy. As he dismantles the Allied forces, that belief strengthens. He looks at their desperation, at the way they exhaust themselves defending a system that repeatedly sacrifices its youth, and sees confirmation. They fight to preserve freedom, yes. But what has that freedom historically produced? More war, more orphans, more grief. The five Kage eventually confront him together. Gaara, Tsunade, Onoki, the Raikage, and the Mizukage, representing the pinnacle of each great nation's strength. Their arrival shifts the battlefield again. This is no longer an army versus legend. It is leadership versus ideology. And the fight intensifies. Gaara's sand moves with surgical precision, restraining and shielding. The Raikage charges with lightning-infused strikes, powerful enough to shatter bone. Onoki manipulates gravity, reducing Madara's weight, amplifying allied attacks. Tsunade shatters Susanoo, constructs with monstrous strength, healing fatal wounds almost instantly. The Mizukage floods the field with corrosive mist. For a moment, momentum shifts. They coordinate beautifully. Nations once at odds, moving as one organism. Techniques overlap. Strategies evolve mid-fight. They force Madara to acknowledge them seriously. And he does. He unveils his perfect Susanoo, a towering, mountain-sized construct of chakra armor, blade large enough to slice peaks in half. When it swings, entire ridgelines fracture. The sky itself seems to recoil. The Kage are pushed beyond their limits. Tsunade's regeneration begins slowing under repeated trauma. Onoki strains his aged body to maintain particle-style techniques. The Raikage's lightning flickers with exhaustion. Madara does not hate them. He almost respects them, but he does not see them as equals. He sees them as remnants of a flawed era, trying to defend its own repetition. And that is what makes him so dangerous. He is not fighting emotionally. He is fighting with conviction. By the time the battlefield settles into temporary stillness, hope feels smaller than it did at the start of the day. thousands have witnessed what one resurrected man can do. The gap between human effort and godlike ambition has never felt wider. The Allied Shinobi Forces do not collapse, but something in them trembles. Because this war is no longer about stopping an organization. It is about stopping an idea powerful enough to reshape the world. And Madara has just proven that strength alone may not be enough. The sky remains intact, for now. But it has never felt thinner. When the 5 Kage stand before Madara Uchiha, the war compresses into something almost symbolic. Around them, the Allied Shinobi Forces struggle to maintain formation. Medical units overwhelmed, chakra reserves dwindling, communication lines strained. But here, in this fractured valley, carved by meteors and Susanoo blades, the leaders of the 5 great nations represent the final line between overwhelming despair and total collapse. They do not stand as friends. They stand as necessity. Gaara, once the isolated weapon of the sand, now Kazekage at a young age, carries a calm maturity shaped by Naruto's influence. He understands loneliness better than most. He understands what it means to be weaponized by one's own village. And as he faces Madara, he does not see only an enemy. He sees another relic of a system that turned children into tools. But Gaara does not allow that understanding to weaken him. His sand rises in disciplined currents, forming shields layered with chakra control, refined through years of self-mastery. Beside him stands the 4th Raikage, prideful, powerful, direct. A man shaped by loss, particularly the apparent death of his brother Killer B years earlier. His leadership style is forceful. He believes in strength as deterrence. He believes that hesitation invites destruction. And as lightning cloaks his body in crackling armor, he embodies the idea that power must meet power without flinching. Onoki, the 3rd Tsuchikage, is older than the others by decades. His back is bent not only by age, but by memory. He remembers Madara from his youth. He remembers standing before him once before and feeling small. That memory has haunted him ever since. The Stone Village participated in wars that cost countless lives. Onoki authorized operations that scarred nations. He knows firsthand that the shinobi world has not been innocent. And as he floats above the battlefield, manipulating gravity itself, there is determination in him, but also regret. Tsunade, 5th Hokage of the Leaf, stands not only as a Kage, but as a medic who has watched too many soldiers die. She inherited a village burdened by secrets. The Uchiha massacre, Root's shadow operations, the pain inflicted by Orochimaru. She knows that leadership means making impossible decisions and carrying their consequences. As she activates her strength of 100 seal, chakra floods her body in violent surges, skin regenerating from wounds as quickly as they open. She fights, knowing every second she remains standing is another second her village survives. And the 5th Mizukage, Mei Terumi, represents a village that once drowned in internal brutality. The hidden mist was known as the Bloody Mist, a place where graduation meant killing one's peers. She rose to leadership after purging corruption and dismantling that violent tradition. Her presence on this battlefield symbolizes reform, proof that systems can change. Together, they face Madara again. And this time, they fight not as an overwhelmed army, but as concentrated will. The battle resumes with greater ferocity. Gaara's sand wraps around Madara's movements, restricting angles of attack, while Onoki reduces the weight of allied strikes, amplifying impact. The Raikage moves at blinding speeds, his lightning-enhanced punches cracking through Susanoo rib cages. Tsunade leaps forward, her fists shattering spectral armor with explosive force. Mei floods sections of terrain with acidic mist, forcing Madara to reposition. For a moment, a brief, fragile moment, coordination pushes Madara back. He acknowledges them with something close to genuine interest. But Madara adapts. He summons multiple wood clones, each capable of manifesting Susanoo themselves. The battlefield fractures into layered confrontations, each cage forced to divide attention. The ground erupts with wood-style techniques, massive roots piercing upward, reshaping terrain, binding movement. Madara combines the bloodline of the Senju with the ocular might of the Uchiha, embodying the very union that once founded the Hidden Leaf, now weaponized. The symbolism is crushing. Hashirama believed unity would end war. Madara uses that unity of power to dominate it. The Kag push harder. Tsunade sustains fatal-level injuries repeatedly, her regeneration slowing as chakra drains. The Raikage's strikes grow heavier, but slightly slower. Onoki's particle-style techniques, capable of disintegrating matter at the molecular level, carve through wood constructs, but each use strains his aging body further. Gaara's sand shields crack under repeated impact. They are not incompetent. They are simply human. And Madara, even in reanimated form, feels beyond that classification. Between exchanges, he speaks, not tauntingly, but analytically. He questions their faith in the shinobi system. He reminds them that villages were built on contracts for violence, that even now, children are trained to kill in the name of protection. He does not shout these accusations. He states them calmly, as if reviewing historical fact. And the uncomfortable truth is, he is not entirely wrong. The Five Cage are defending a world that has caused immense suffering. They know it. Each of them carries policies they regret. Each has authorized missions that resulted in civilian casualties. Leadership is not clean. It is compromise layered upon compromise. But what separates them from Madara is this. They believe reform is possible. Madara does not. The climax of their confrontation comes when Madara reveals his perfect Susanoo fully once more. It towers above them like a deity carved from chakra and malice. Its blade slices through distant mountains with a casual swing. The earth splits. Shockwaves flatten trees, miles away. Even seasoned shinobi, watching from afar, feel their breath catch. This is not simply strength. This is dominance, elevated to myth. The Kaj refuse to retreat. Tsunade channels the last reserves of her stored chakra to land a devastating blow against Madara's body itself. The Raikage follows with a lightning-infused strike timed perfectly with Gaara's restraining sand. Onoki amplifies their force with gravity manipulation, risking complete chakra depletion. They land the hit. Madara's body fractures. For a heartbeat, hope surges. And then his regeneration restores him. The cost of their combined effort becomes visible. Tsunade collapses, blood pooling beneath her as regeneration slows. Onoki falters, mid-air, gravity reasserting itself as his strength fades. The Raikage's lightning flickers weakly. Gaara struggles to maintain defensive formations. Madara stands over them. He does not finish them immediately. He observes. Because in his mind, this confirms everything. Even united leadership cannot transcend the limitations of reality. Even the strongest of this era cannot match the combined will of someone who abandoned belief in the system entirely. But something unexpected happens. The Kaj do not curse him. They do not beg. They do not renounce their faith in cooperation. Even wounded, even defeated temporarily, they speak of protecting future generations, of villages that can evolve, of mistakes learned from rather than erased through illusion. Madara listens, and though he dismisses them outwardly, there is the faintest pause, because deep down, he once believed in evolution too. He once stood beside Hashirama and imagined children growing up without war. He once hoped. That hope died slowly, and now he intends to replace it with something permanent. As the Kage fall unconscious or immobilized, the battlefield grows quiet again, not from peace, but from exhaustion. The Allied Shinobi Forces watch their leaders struck down and feel the weight of uncertainty deepen. If even the 5 Cage cannot stop him, who can? Far away, Naruto continues training. Far away, Obito continues advancing the Moon's Eye plan. And here, on shattered ground, the leaders of 5 nations lie wounded, not because they lacked courage, but because they stood against someone who abandoned the possibility of gradual change. Leadership is heavy, but despair is heavier, and the war is far from over. By the time Naruto Uzumaki finally steps onto the battlefield, the war has already reshaped the landscape, physically and psychologically. Entire divisions have been exhausted. Legendary shinobi have risen and fallen again. The 5 Kaj lie wounded after confronting a force beyond conventional limits. Hope has not vanished, but it has thinned. It hangs like mist over broken terrain, fragile and uncertain. And into that uncertainty runs a boy who once could not even graduate the academy properly. Naruto does not enter the war as a reckless child anymore. He arrives having mastered Kurama's chakra, having wrestled with the Nine Tails, not through domination, but through understanding. The fox that once symbolized his isolation now fights alongside him. This matters, because Naruto's power is not born purely of bloodline or inheritance. It is born of reconciliation, of confronting hatred and choosing not to mirror it. When he appears in a flash of golden chakra, moving at speeds that blur across the battlefield, the shift is immediate. White Zetsu forces are dismantled almost casually. Naruto's clones disperse across multiple fronts simultaneously, reinforcing crumbling divisions, sensing hostile chakra signatures from miles away. His presence is tactical and emotional. Shinobi, who moments ago felt overwhelmed, now straighten. They fight harder. They endure longer. But the burden of that reaction is immense. Naruto becomes aware quickly that soldiers are not just fighting beside him. They are fighting because of him. They look at him and see the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. They see Minato's son. They see Jiraiya's student. They see the child of prophecy whispered about by the great Toad Sage. He becomes symbol, layered upon symbol. And symbols are heavy. On one battlefield, Naruto encounters the reanimated Third Raikage, a man whose physical durability once rivaled the tailed beasts themselves. Lightning armor crackles violently around the massive figure as he charges through allied ranks, tearing through formations. Naruto engages him directly, testing speed against resilience. Their clashes shatter ground beneath them, shock waves rippling outward with each collision. But Naruto does not overpower him immediately. Instead, he listens. He gathers information mid-fight, observes scar patterns, recalls stories of how the Third Raikage once wounded himself during combat with the Eight Tails. Naruto realizes something critical. The only thing capable of piercing the Raikage's defense is his own attack redirected back at him. And so, Naruto does something subtle but profound. He trusts intelligence over brute force. Timing his movements perfectly, he maneuvers the Raikage's unstoppable spear hand technique back into his own chest. The reanimated warrior falls, not from overwhelming dominance, but from understanding. Before dissolving, the Raikage acknowledges Naruto's strength, not just physically, but perceptively. This pattern repeats across the battlefield. Naruto does not simply defeat opponents. He connects with them. When he encounters former Jinchuriki resurrected under Obito's control, he does not treat them as enemies alone. He senses the trapped tailed beasts within them, beings he now empathizes with deeply. Kurama speaks to him differently now, not with contempt, with respect. The two coordinate seamlessly as Naruto uses shadow clones infused with Nine Tails chakra to disrupt chakra rods, binding the Jinchuriki to Obito's will. The battles are explosive. Rasengan variants, detonating in spirals of compressed energy, chakra arms extending like living constructs, golden light slicing through dark battlefield smoke. Naruto moves between fronts at speeds that leave afterimages lingering in the air. Allied Shinobi witness techniques they have never seen before, chakra cloaks radiating warmth rather than malice. But every victory reinforces something dangerous. Expectation. Naruto begins feeling it in subtle ways. Soldiers thanking him as if the war is already won. Commanders deferring to him instinctively. Even hardened veterans looking to him before making decisions. The psychological shift is immense. Naruto, who once sought acknowledgement desperately, now receives it in overwhelming quantities. And yet, there is no time to celebrate, because across the battlefield stands Obito, masked, silent, watching. Their first major confrontation during the war is not loud with speeches. It is sharp and kinetic. Obito phases through attacks using Kamui, slipping between dimensions, with unsettling calm. Naruto's Rasengan passes through empty space as Obito rematerializes behind him. Chains lash outward. Black chakra rods pierce earth. Explosions rupture the ground where Naruto stood seconds earlier. Speed meets intangibility. Hope meets nihilism. Naruto studies him carefully. He senses something familiar in Obito's chakra, something fragmented. During their exchanges, Naruto speaks not from superiority, but from recognition. He understands loneliness. He understands being dismissed. He understands watching someone precious die and wanting to blame the world. And Obito hears him, but refuses him. The battle intensifies when the Ten Tails begins to take shape, its grotesque, colossal form writhing across the horizon as chakra condenses into something primordial. The ground quakes under its emergence. Shock waves flatten entire segments of forest. Its roars distort the air itself. Allied divisions scramble to contain devastation on a scale none of them have witnessed before. Naruto does not retreat. He multiplies. Hundreds of shadow clones, infused with Kurama's chakra, spread across the battlefield, each fighting independently, each protecting squads from annihilation. The stamina required is monstrous. Even with Kurama's cooperation, the strain begins to show. Sweat beads along his face beneath the glowing cloak. Breathing grows heavier, but he keeps moving, because he knows something crucial. If he stops, morale fractures. There is a quiet scene amid the chaos where Naruto pauses briefly beside wounded soldiers. He transfers chakra to them, not enough to make them invincible, but enough to stand again. They feel warmth surge through their systems. Fatigue lightens. For a moment, the battlefield feels less cold. This is the difference between Naruto and Madara. Madara demonstrates superiority to prove a point. Naruto shares strength to preserve others. Yet even as Naruto shines across the battlefield, doubt flickers beneath the surface. Obito's words linger. The claim that the shinobi system inevitably produces suffering. The accusation that Naruto's optimism is naive. As Naruto watches comrades fall despite his efforts, he feels the weight of those accusations pressing against his certainty. Can one person's belief truly undo generations of hatred? Can bonds survive something as colossal as the Ten Tails? These questions do not weaken him immediately, but they settle, and they will resurface. For now, Naruto continues moving faster than despair can settle fully. His golden chakra streaks across darkened terrain like a comet refusing to burn out. Soldiers rise because he stands. Divisions reorganize because he reinforces them. The war shifts again, not because Madara has been defeated, but because someone refuses to accept inevitability. Obito watches carefully, because in Naruto, he sees something dangerous, not overwhelming power, but unwavering belief. And belief, if left unchecked, can disrupt even the most carefully constructed illusion. The battlefield remains chaotic. The Ten Tails continues forming. Madara advances his plans. But now, at the center of it all, stands a boy carrying more than chakra. He carries expectation. He carries history. He carries the fragile possibility that the cycle might finally break. And that possibility terrifies those who believe it cannot. By this point, in the Fourth Great Ninja War, the battlefield has stopped resembling anything human. The ground is no longer soil. It is glassed over by Biju bombs, torn apart by tectonic scale ninjutsu, reshaped again and again until it feels less like a place and more like the aftermath of a natural disaster that refuses to end. The sky hangs heavy with chakra residue, shimmering distortions of space from Kamui warping in and out of existence. And at the center of it all stands Obito Uchiha, no longer a masked manipulator, no longer Madara, but something far more dangerous. The Ten Tails Jinchuriki. His transformation is not theatrical. It is apocalyptic. When the Ten Tails is sealed within him, there is no triumphant declaration, no moment of victory for the villain. Instead, there is silence, a suffocating stillness. His body changes in unsettling ways. Pale, almost chalk-white skin, horn-like protrusions emerging from his head. The black, truth-seeking orbs forming behind him in a floating ring, like halos torn from a corrupted deity. He does not radiate rage. He radiates inevitability. And that is worse. Lore-wise, this moment is monumental. The Ten Tails is not simply another tailed beast. It is the primordial source of all chakra in the shinobi world. It is the fused form of Kaguya Otsutsuki and the God Tree, the original calamity that forced Hagoromo to divide its power into 9 separate entities. By sealing it inside himself, Obito is essentially recreating the Sage of 6 Paths power. He is stepping into myth, into legend. into a position that once required divine intervention to overcome. And yet, unlike Hagoromo, Obito is not a figure of balance. He is a man who broke under grief. The immediate combat that follows is brutal and almost hopeless. Naruto and Sasuke, even with their evolved forms, Naruto wielding Kurama's chakra, and Sasuke using his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, cannot approach Obito directly. Every ninjutsu they launch dissolves upon contact with the truth-seeking orbs, which nullify chakra-based techniques at their core. These black spheres are not just weapons. They are condensed yin-yang release, the fundamental shaping force of creation and destruction. One miscalculated move means erasure, not injury. Erasure. Minato Namikaze enters the battlefield not as the fourth Hokage legend, but as a father facing the consequences of a night he never fully understood. Seeing Obito like this, seeing the student he once trained now wielding power-rivaling gods, adds another layer of tragedy. Minato is analytical, even in despair, quickly deducing the mechanics of Obito's abilities, realizing that senjutsu-infused attacks are one of the few things that can actually harm him. That detail is not random. It ties directly back to the Ten Tails' nature. As a being connected to natural energy on a primordial scale, only senjutsu, which draws upon nature rather than purely molded chakra, can pierce that defense. So Naruto shifts into Sage mode atop Kurama's chakra cloak, his form blazing gold with cross-shaped pupils, and the battlefield explodes into motion. What makes this sequence powerful is not just the scale of the attacks, but the precision. Naruto coordinates with Tobirama's teleportation, with Sasuke's Susanoo defenses, with Minato's instantaneous movement. They are fighting a being who can reshape matter with will alone. Obito creates massive chakra constructs, expanding black staffs and blades from truth-seeking orbs, slicing through terrain with effortless swings. Mountains crumble. Shock waves flatten entire stretches of battlefield. Shinobi are forced to retreat or risk being caught in attacks that no longer feel like ninjutsu, but divine judgment. But in the middle of this overwhelming force, something strange happens. Obito hesitates. Not physically at first. His attacks are precise, lethal, controlled, but internally. Because Naruto does something Obito cannot process. Naruto refuses to hate him. Throughout the war, Obito has justified everything with a single belief. The world is fundamentally broken. Bonds lead to pain. Love leads to loss. The shinobi system inevitably sacrifices the innocent. Therefore, the Infinite Tsukuyomi is mercy. It will overwrite reality with a dream where no one suffers. No more graves. No more Rin dying in front of him. No more children on battlefields. But Naruto stands there, battered, exhausted, surrounded by the wounded and the dying, and still believes in this reality. That contradiction begins to fracture Obito's certainty. There is a particularly intense exchange where Naruto confronts him not just with attacks, but with words layered between strikes. He accuses Obito of running away, of abandoning the very dream he once had, to become Hokage. The irony is unbearable. Obito once said the same things Naruto now shouts across the battlefield. He once believed bonds were worth protecting, that comrades were worth dying for. Now he claims to stand above those naive ideals. The psychological tension escalates as Naruto uses chakra arms to connect physically with the Shinobi Alliance, sharing Kurama's power across thousands of fighters. The symbolism is heavy. Obito seeks unity through illusion. Naruto achieves it through shared reality. The Allied Shinobi Forces, once fractured by village rivalries and old grudges, now move as a synchronized force, their chakra cloaks glowing in unison. They are not bound by a dream. They are bound by choice. And Obito sees it. He sees shinobi shielding each other from truth-seeking orbs. He sees former enemies cooperating without coercion. He sees Kakashi, the friend he blamed for Rin's death, still fighting to protect others rather than collapsing into hatred. These images do not align with his narrative. They are proof that the world, while cruel, is not exclusively cruel. Inside him, the Ten Tails stirs violently. There is another layer here that often gets overlooked. Being the Ten Tails Jinchuriki is not a stable state. Unlike Naruto, who built trust with Kurama over years of conflict and understanding, Obito forcefully subjugates the Ten Tails. He dominates it through willpower and Sharingan control, but there is no harmony. The beast resists. Its chakra surges unpredictably. Its form tries to destabilize. Maintaining control requires immense focus, and doubt weakens that control. So when Naruto's words land, when memories of Rin surface uninvited, when he begins to question whether he truly abandoned his own ideals, the Ten Tails reacts. Its power flares erratically. The ground cracks. The sky pulses with distorted energy. It is not just a battle outside. It is a war within Obito's own mind. The fight escalates further when Naruto and Sasuke coordinate one of the most visually stunning assaults of the war. Sasuke manifests a complete Susanoo, towering and armored, and Naruto forms a massive, tailed beast Rasen Shuriken, infused with Senjutsu. The combination attack is not simply spectacle. It represents the union of Uchiha and Uzumaki power, descendants of Indra and Asura unknowingly aligning against a twisted echo of their ancestors' ideology. When the attack collides with Obito, the explosion distorts the horizon, light swallowing sound for a split second before reality crashes back into place. Obito survives, but his mask, literal and metaphorical, is gone. He is exposed, not just physically, but emotionally. And as Naruto stands before him, breathing hard, refusing to yield, Obito is forced to confront the possibility that he did not create the Infinite Tsukuyomi to save the world. He created it to avoid living in it. The war, once defined by armies and tactics and reanimated legends, narrows into something intimate and devastating. A broken boy who chose illusion versus a stubborn, reckless ninja who chooses painful reality every single time. The 10 Tails roars behind Obito like a storm barely contained, the truth-seeking orbs orbiting him in tense silence, and for the first time since declaring himself the world's savior, he looks uncertain. The battlefield waits, because if Obito falters, the entire war will change. By the time the battlefield reaches this stage of the Fourth Great Ninja War, destruction is no longer shocking. Entire landscapes have already been rewritten by chakra. Mountains are craters. Forests are ash. The air itself feels saturated with power, so dense it hums in the lungs. And yet, the most catastrophic event unfolding is not physical. It is ideological. Because Obito Uchiha, the self-proclaimed savior of the world, the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, the man who believed he had risen above human weakness, is beginning to fracture from the inside. Externally, he is still a god. Internally, he is unraveling. The mechanics of his power at this stage are staggering. As the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, Obito possesses near limitless chakra, flight, regenerative capability that borders on instant reconstruction, and mastery over truth-seeking orbs. Black spheres of condensed yin-yang release, capable of nullifying any ninjutsu they touch. These orbs are not merely projectiles. They are metaphysical weapons, capable of reshaping matter, forming shields, blades, spears, or expanding into annihilating shockwaves. Conventional attacks are useless. Even combined Kaguya-level techniques disintegrate before reaching him. And yet, despite this overwhelming supremacy, Naruto's strategy remains consistent. Reach him. Not defeat him. Reach him. The action intensifies when Obito reshapes the battlefield into a literal execution ground. Massive, divine tree branches erupt from the earth, remnants of the god tree's power responding to its chakra source. They lash outward indiscriminately, skewering terrain, forcing shinobi into chaotic evasions. Tobirama teleports squads out of certain death. Sasuke's Susanoo deflects debris the size of fortresses. Naruto splits his chakra into dozens of enhanced shadow clones, each one coordinating with battlefield precision that rivals seasoned generals. The scale feels mythological, like gods testing creation itself. But the true shift happens when Naruto and Sasuke begin exploiting the one weakness Obito cannot suppress: instability. The 10 Tails was never meant to be sealed by force into a human body lacking spiritual harmony. Unlike Naruto and Killer Bee, who gradually built bonds with their tailed beasts, Obito dominates through suppression. The 10 Tails does not cooperate. It seethes. It strains against the cage of his will. And every moment of hesitation, every emotional fluctuation, loosens that grip. Naruto recognizes it. In one of the most thematically powerful sequences of the entire war, Naruto deliberately engages Obito in close combat, not simply to strike, but to connect. Their fists clash mid-air, chakra exploding outward in violent shockwaves. And during those moments of physical contact, Naruto invades something deeper. Memory. Through chakra resonance, fragments of Obito's past surface, Team Minato laughing, Rin smiling, the naive promise to become Hokage. These are not genjutsu tricks. They are emotional ruptures. Obito retaliates with savage force, forming a black staff from a truth-seeking orb and driving Naruto into the earth with planet-cracking impact. The ground implodes beneath them. Shockwaves ripple for miles. For a moment, it looks final. But Naruto stands back up, because pain does not invalidate his belief. And that persistence is what Obito cannot reconcile. The lore here deepens into something almost philosophical. Obito's entire Infinite Tsukuyomi plan is rooted in the belief that reality itself is flawed beyond repair, that the shinobi system, built on missions and sacrifice, will inevitably destroy what it claims to protect. He is not entirely wrong. History supports him. The Uchiha massacre, the exploitation of Jinchuriki, endless wars fueled by political manipulation. His argument is not madness. It is despair weaponized. But Naruto counters not with denial, but with defiance. Yes, the world is cruel. Yes, bonds can end in death. Yes, Rin died senselessly. But that does not mean reality should be overwritten. It means it must be endured Torah and reshaped through connection rather than control. And that distinction begins to tear Obito apart. The Ten Tails senses this wavering. Its chakra spikes violently, distorting Obito's form. His body briefly mutates, expanding, destabilizing, before he forces it back under control. This moment is critical. It proves he is not transcendent. He is struggling. The supposed God is fighting his own power as much as his enemies. The Allied Shinobi Forces, empowered by Naruto's distributed chakra, begin to coordinating large-scale senjutsu-infused assaults. Even minor shinobi, previously irrelevant against Madara or the Ten Tails, now contribute meaningfully. This visual is deliberate. It contrasts Obito's solitary ascension with Naruto's shared strength. Obito stands alone above the battlefield. Naruto stands among thousands, and slowly, impossibly, they begin pulling the tailed beasts out of him. Through a combination of synchronized Rasengans, Susanoo blade, strikes, flying thunder, God teleportation, and chakra tug-of-war that feels almost symbolic. Naruto and the Alliance manage to connect with the chakra signatures of the individual tailed beasts trapped within the 10 tails. This is not brute extraction. It is resonance. Naruto calls to them by name. Son Goku, kokuo, chome, isobu. Each beast responds not to dominance, but to acknowledgement. That difference breaks something fundamental inside Obito, because for the first time since Rin's death, he sees another path that could have existed. The chakra chains tighten. The 10 tails form destabilizes violently. Obito screams, not in rage, but in conflict. His memories clash with his ideology. His younger self, the boy who once believed in comrades, confronts the man who abandoned them all. The battlefield fades into almost abstract chaos. Explosions of light, shockwaves, swirling chakra. But the emotional focus narrows to one unbearable realization. Naruto did not become him. Naruto endured what he could not. And in that realization, Obito loses more than power. He loses certainty. The extraction continues. The 10 tails begins separating back into its constituent beasts, chakra ripping outward in blinding torrents. Obito's godlike form cracks like porcelain under pressure. Truth-seeking. Orbs shatter. The divine aura flickers. The sky darkens not with dominance, but with collapse. When it ends, Obito falls, not as a deity, as a man, broken, exhausted, stripped of the 10 tails, lying in the ruins of the world he tried to erase. The war pauses, not because it is over, but because something monumental has shifted. The architect of the Infinite Tsukuyomi has been defeated, not by superior hatred, not by overwhelming force alone, but by refusal to surrender to despair. But the tragedy of the Fourth Great Ninja War is not finished, because someone else has been watching, and he has been waiting for this exact moment. When Obito falls, the battlefield exhales, but only for a second. There is a brief, fragile silence in the ruins, the kind that comes after a storm, but before you realize, the eye has passed overhead. Obito lies broken, stripped of the 10 tails, his body barely held together by stubborn will and the fading embers of borrowed chakra. Naruto stands over him, not victorious in triumph, but heavy with the weight of what it took to reach him. The Allied Shinobi Forces are battered, scattered, exhausted beyond language. And then Madara Uchiha rises. Up until this point, Madara has been terrifying, yes, but also patient, calculating, even amused. He allowed Obito to take the role of Messiah. He allowed the 10 tails to be weaponized. He allowed the war to unfold like a long anticipated stage play. But now that Obito has failed, now that the Infinite Tsukuyomi has stalled, Madara stops pretending to be a participant. He becomes the inevitable. The action begins abruptly and without mercy. Before anyone can reorganize, Madara moves, not with rage, not with desperation, with precision. He descends upon Obito, not as a comrade, but as a predator reclaiming stolen prey. Using the very failsafe he implanted long ago, he forces Obito to perform Rin Rebirth. It is one of the coldest moments in the entire war. Not because it is loud, but because it is quiet. Obito, who was once manipulated into villainy through grief, is now stripped of agency completely. Madara planned for betrayal, planned for failure, planned for contingency. He always assumed Obito would falter. And he was right. With Rin Rebirth activated, Madara restores himself fully to life, flesh and blood, heartbeat, and breath. The Edo Tensei immortality had made him untouchable. But true resurrection makes him something far more dangerous, human again, with infinite ambition and no binding contract to a summoner. The sensory shift in the battlefield is immediate. His chakra changes. It is no longer the cold, undead pressure of reanimation. It is warm, violent, colossal. It presses down like gravity, increasing by degrees. Even seasoned shinobi feel their lungs tighten. The lore here deepens in frightening ways. Madara is no longer simply an Uchiha prodigy or a resurrected relic of the Warring States period. He is now the culmination of stolen power. He possesses the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Hashirama's cells integrated into his body, would release at a level rivaling its originator, and the Rinnegan awakened through decades of manipulation. He is the meeting point of Indra and Asura's bloodlines, an artificial sage of 6 paths, and he fights like it. The assault on the battlefield is not chaotic, like Obito's divine rampage. It is surgical devastation. Madara summons meteors again, echoing his earlier dominance, but this time they feel less theatrical and more symbolic. The sky itself bends to him. Sasuke intercepts with Susanoo. Naruto counters with enhanced Rasen Shuriken infused with Senjutsu, and for a moment it resembles their previous battles. But then Madara shifts tactics. He blindsides them with limbo, border jail, shadow clones existing in a parallel plane, invisible and untouchable to anyone without 6 paths chakra or Rinnegan perception. The first strike is catastrophic. Naruto is hurled across the landscape by something he cannot see. Sasuke's Susanoo shatters from an unseen blow. Entire formations collapse as invisible forces tear through them. The terror here is conceptual. How do you fight what you cannot perceive? The answer comes slowly. Naruto, tapping deeper into the residual sage mode power, gifted by the tailed beasts, begins sensing distortions in natural energy. Sasuke's Rinnegan, newly awakened, allows him to glimpse the outlines of the Limbo clones. For the first time, the battlefield narrows into something intimate again. 2 prodigies standing against the origin of their conflict. Because this is no longer about the war. This is about legacy. Madara does not rage at Naruto. He does not curse Sasuke. In fact, he almost admires them. He sees echoes of Hashirama in Naruto, relentless optimism backed by impossible strength. He sees Indra's pride refined into lethal clarity in Sasuke. To Madara, they are proof that the cycle continues exactly as it always has. And that is why he believes he must end it. The infinite, Tsukuyomi, in his mind, is not escapism like it was for Obito. It is correction, a permanent solution to the endless reincarnation of conflict between Indra and Asura, between ambition and compassion, between power and peace. The action escalates when Madara moves to reclaim the tailed beasts directly. No speeches, no declarations. He launches himself into the fray and begins extracting chakra through brute force, subduing even the partially freed beasts with wood release constructs reinforced by Rinnegan suppression. Massive wooden dragons coil through the sky, draining chakra on contact. The sheer scale of his jutsu dwarfs even Obito's earlier displays. Naruto pushes beyond exhaustion. Sasuke matches him, strike for strike. Their teamwork sharpens into something almost instinctual. Rasengan synchronized with Chidori, Kurama's chakra interwoven with Susanu's armor. They are fighting not just for survival, but to prevent a man who has lived through an entire era of bloodshed from rewriting reality permanently. And still, Madara advances. The battle stretches across craters and shattered ridgelines, each exchange reshaping what little remains of the terrain. The Allied Shinobi Forces can barely assist now. This has escalated beyond armies, beyond nations. It is approaching myth. Then comes the moment that tilts everything. Madara successfully extracts the remaining tailed beast chakra fragments and moves to reseal the ten tails into himself. Unlike Obito, he does not hesitate. The ten tails fuses with him almost seamlessly. His body adapts instantly. Decades of Hashirama cell integration stabilizing what broke Obito apart. His form shifts into something regal and alien. Robes of white flowing, truth-seeking orbs manifesting behind him in perfect symmetry. His forehead opens to reveal the Rin Sharingan, the eye capable of casting the Infinite Tsukuyomi. The sky reacts. Clouds spiral unnaturally. The moon looms heavy, ominous, as though aware it is about to become a weapon. The battlefield feels smaller under his presence. This is not desperation. This is culmination. Madara Uchiha has achieved what he set out to do nearly a century ago. He stands as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, alive, unbound, complete. Naruto and Sasuke, bruised and breathing hard, look up at a man who has outmaneuvered death itself multiple times. The war that began as a conflict between villages has transformed into a confrontation with an ideology older than those villages. The tragedy deepens here, not because evil has won, but because Madara truly believes he is saving everyone. His conviction is absolute. There is no doubt in him the way there was in Obito. Only certainty. And certainty in this war has always been the most dangerous weapon of all. Above them, the moon waits, and Madara prepares to open his final eye. When Madara Uchiha ascends fully As the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, the battlefield changes in a way that no explosion or jutsu ever managed to accomplish. It does not erupt in fire. It does not collapse into a crater. Instead, the world grows unnaturally still, as though reality itself is holding its breath. Floating high above the devastation, white robes flowing in slow, weightless motion, Madara gazes up at the moon, not as a celestial body, but as a canvas, as a mirror, as the final instrument in a symphony he has been composing since childhood. And then he opens the Rinne Sharingan. The eye blossoms across his forehead like a dark sun, concentric tomoe rippling outward in hypnotic symmetry. Chakra pulses upward into the sky, a column of divine light piercing the clouds and striking the moon's surface. The moon answers. Its pale glow intensifies, swelling, distorting, transforming into something unnatural, an eye gazing back at the world below. The Infinite Tsukuyomi begins. The light falls not as warmth, but as command. It spreads across continents in seconds, bathing mountains, oceans, forests, and cities in an otherworldly radiance. Every living being who looks upon it feels the pull instantly, a soft, irresistible gravity behind the eyes. Shinobi mid-battle freeze. Weapons slip from their fingers. Even hardened veterans who have resisted genjutsu their entire lives feel their minds surrender, like doors unlocking from the inside. Across the battlefield, soldiers begin to collapse, not in pain, but in relief. Faces soften. Tears form. Some smile. Some whisper names, long gone. The war does not end with screams. It ends with surrender to dream. And from the earth itself, the God tree rises. What was once the 10 Tails husk erupts into towering branches that split the sky. Roots spear through the soil, like veins reclaiming a body. From its bark extend pale tendrils, organic, silent, deliberate, that seek out every ensnared victim. One by one, shinobi are lifted gently into the air and cocooned in fibrous pods, suspended like fruit in a grotesque orchard. This is not chaos. It is cultivation. The action here is surreal rather than explosive. Naruto and Sasuke, shielded by the chakra of the tailed beasts and the protection of Susanoo, watch as the entire world is harvested in moments. Entire battalions vanish upward. The 5 Kage fall. Even those who fought through meteors and resurrection cannot resist this light. The Allied Shinobi Forces, forged from distrust and fragile unity, dissolve into silence without a final charge. The tragedy of the 4th Great Ninja War crystallizes here. It did not end in decisive victory or defeat. It ended in sleep. Madara descends slowly, surveying what he has accomplished. His expression is not cruel. It is serene. He believes he has done it. After generations of bloodshed between clans, after the fall of the Uchiha, after Hashirama's naive dream fractured into political compromise, he has created peace. True, uninterrupted peace. In the dreamscape woven by the infinite Tsukuyomi, every person experiences their deepest desire fulfilled. Lost loved ones return. Regrets are erased. Failures are rewritten. The lonely are no longer alone. The powerless feel strong. The grieving find closure. It is a perfect lie. And that is what makes it terrifying. From a lore perspective, this moment reaches back to the origin of chakra itself. The infinite. Tsukuyomi was not Madara's invention. It was the will of Kaguya Otsutsuki, the primordial being who first wielded chakra on Earth. The God tree was once the divine tree, planted to harvest life energy. The same mechanism that now suspends the world in dreams was once used to drain entire civilizations. Madara believes he is using ancient power to correct human failure. But he does not realize he is reenacting something far older. Naruto stands amid the ruins, watching comrades vanish into the sky. He feels Kurama's chakra flare protectively around him. The remaining tailed beasts, sealed partially within him and linked spiritually, resonate in agitation. They have seen this before, not in memory, but in inherited instinct. This light is not salvation. It is consumption. Sasuke's Rinnegan narrows as he studies Madara. Unlike Obito, Madara shows no visible strain. The Ten Tails rests within him, comfortably. Truth-seeking. Orbs orbit in perfect alignment. His power feels complete, stabilized, final. There is no flicker of doubt, and that certainty isolates him further. He speaks not with anger, but with quiet vindication. He tells Naruto that this is what Hashirama failed to understand, that humans cannot escape conflict while awake, that bonds inevitably rot into rivalry, that love inevitably becomes possessive, that power inevitably corrupts. So he has removed choice. The action resumes when Naruto and Sasuke launch their counterattack, not out of strategy alone, but defiance. Rasen Shuriken infused with 6 paths senjutsu collide against truth-seeking orbs. Sasuke's space-time ninjutsu distorts the battlefield, attempting to destabilize Madara's control. The clash of divine chakra tears through what remains of the terrain, carving new scars into an already ruined landscape. But something is off. Despite their growth, despite the Sage of 6 Paths' blessing, empowering them beyond any shinobi before, Madara adapts effortlessly. His regeneration outpaces their damage. Limbo clones continue striking from unseen planes. The infinite Tsukuyomi continues uninterrupted, its light sustained by the Rinne Sharingan's gaze upon the moon. The world is already lost. And yet Naruto refuses to accept that. That is the final emotional pivot of this part. The war may have ended in global sleep, But Naruto stands awake, not just physically, but ideologically. Where Madara sees humanity as fundamentally broken, Naruto sees imperfection as proof of life. Where Madara sees conflict as inevitability, Naruto sees struggle as opportunity. Two philosophies stand in opposition, while the rest of the planet dreams. The branches of the God Tree stretch further into the horizon, wrapping cities, forests, and coastlines in silent imprisonment. The sky glows faintly red beneath the moon's eye. The battlefield is no longer crowded with armies. It is empty, except for gods. And as Madara gazes upon his completed world, believing history has finally been corrected, the shadows begin to shift. Because the tragedy of the Fourth Great Ninja War is not that Madara succeeded. It is that he succeeded exactly as planned. And someone else was waiting for that moment all along. For all of Madara Uchiha's certainty, for all his decades of manipulation, war, resurrection, and ascension, the most devastating truth of the Fourth Great Ninja War is this: it was never truly his plan. As Naruto and Sasuke press forward against Madara's godlike form, something subtle begins to fracture. Not in his body, not yet, but in the rhythm of the battlefield itself. The air feels wrong. Chakra currents distort. The God Tree trembles, not in obedience, but in anticipation. Black Zetsu, who has lingered at Madara's side for years as an obedient will made manifest, watches in silence. And then he moves. The betrayal is instantaneous and horrifying. Black Zetsu does not strike Madara in anger. He does not rebel. He does not declare independence. He simply pierces Madara's chest from behind. The shock is not just physical. It is existential. Madara, who orchestrated wars and toppled nations, who manipulated Obito, who bent the shinobi world toward his singular vision, realizes too late that he himself was manipulated. Black Zetsu was never his creation. He was never Madara's will incarnate. He was Kaguya's. The ground splits. Chakra surges violently outward. Madara's body convulses as the Ten Tails writhes within him. His form begins to warp, not in enhancement, but in replacement. Bone and flesh stretch and tear under divine pressure. The Rin Sharingan pulses erratically, and then she emerges. Kaguya Otsutsuki, the progenitor of chakra, the mother of Hagoromo and Hamura, the being who first consumed the fruit of the divine tree, returns to the world of the living. The battlefield transforms instantly. This is no longer shinobi against shinobi, or even shinobi against a godlike man. This is humanity against its origin. Kaguya does not stand as Madara did, regal and philosophical. She hovers, pale and alien, her Byakugan eyes vast and emotionless. Twin horns crown her head. Her presence is not wrathful. It is indifferent. And that indifference is far more terrifying. The Infinite Tsukuyomi still blankets the world. the God Tree continues harvesting chakra. Every living soul remains cocooned in illusion, feeding energy upward into the divine body that has reclaimed the earth. The war Naruto thought he was fighting, the war of ideology, of generational hatred, of broken systems, evaporates in an instant. Those conflicts were human. This is something older. From a lore perspective, this revelation reframes everything. The cycle of hatred that plagued the shinobi world did not begin with the Uchiha and Senju. It did not begin with Hashirama and Madara. It began when Kaguya consumed the chakra fruit to end human conflict through absolute power. Her fear of betrayal led her to hoard chakra. Her hoarding led her sons to oppose her. Hagoromo and Hamura sealed her away, dividing the 10 tails into the tailed beasts. But Black Zetsu survived, a physical manifestation of her will, and he spent centuries manipulating history from the shadows. He whispered into Indra's ear. He deepened the rift between brothers. He guided the Uchiha toward isolation. He planted false interpretations of the sage's tablet. He ensured that Madara would one day seek the Infinite Tsukuyomi, believing it his own idea. The Fourth Great Ninja War was not merely a culmination of shinobi politics. It was the final step of a 1,000-year resurrection ritual. Naruto and Sasuke barely have time to process this before Kaguya attacks. Her movements defy conventional space. With a flicker, she shifts dimensions entirely, dragging them into alien landscapes, frozen tundras beneath black skies, oceans of acid, volcanic wastelands where gravity feels unstable and air tastes like ash. Each dimension is a prison she once used to isolate threats. Now they become battlegrounds. The action here becomes surreal and relentless. Naruto splits into countless shadow clones, their 6 paths chakra blazing gold against alien horizons. Sasuke warps through space with his Rinnegan, switching positions with debris, with clones, with Naruto himself in coordinated maneuvers that defy physics. Lava surges. Ice forms instantly. Massive chakra fists clash against expanding truth-seeking spheres that can disintegrate matter itself. But Kaguya does not fight like a warrior. She fights like nature. Her attacks are vast and impersonal, bone spears erupting from her palms that turn targets to ash, chakra arms stretching across dimensions, gravitational shifts that crush the terrain into spirals. There is no hatred in her eyes, no speeches, no philosophy, only instinct. And this is the final tragedy of the war. After generations of ideological struggle, of broken bonds, and fragile reconciliation, humanity's greatest conflict reduces to survival against something that does not even recognize their individuality. Obito, battered and fading, plays his final role here. Once the architect of despair, he now shields Naruto from a fatal blow, sacrificing himself in an act of genuine redemption. Kakashi, empowered briefly by Obito's lingering chakra and dual Mangekyo Sharingan, manifests a complete Susanoo. A momentary miracle born not from bloodline pride, but shared grief and forgiveness. Even Sakura stands at the center of this final act, not as an afterthought, but as a pillar. Her strength shatters Kaguya's defenses at a crucial moment. Her resolve anchors the team when dimensional chaos threatens to separate them permanently. Team 7, fractured by years of rivalry, trauma, and loss, fights together, not because prophecy demands it, but because they choose to. And that choice matters. The ceiling itself is not explosive in the way earlier battles were. It is focused. Naruto and Sasuke, bearing the yin and yang seals granted by Hagoromo, close in simultaneously. Kaguya attempts one final dimensional shift, one final escape. But coordination born of trust cuts through her omnipotence. Their palms connect. Light erupts. The Rina Sharingan fades. The God Tree collapses inward. The Infinite Tsukuyomi shatters like glass across the sky. Cocooned shinobi fall gently back to earth as the illusion dissolves. Kaguya is sealed once more, not destroyed, but contained within a new celestial prison. Silence follows. The war ends not with celebration, but with exhaustion. Entire landscapes have been erased. Nations are scarred. The dead remain dead. The resurrected return to the afterlife. The Allied Shinobi Forces awaken to a world both saved and irreparably changed. And at the center of it all stand Naruto and Sasuke. The ideological conflict that began with Indra and Asura remains unresolved between them. The war against gods may be over, but the human struggle persists. Sasuke, witnessing the devastation, concludes that the shinobi system itself must be dismantled through force. Naruto believes it must be reformed through connection. Their final battle, though technically after the war, is the emotional coda to this entire tragedy. But that is another story. What lingers here, as we let this final part stretch into quiet reflection, is the cost. The Fourth Great Ninja War began as a conflict between nations. It evolved into a clash of reincarnated rivals. It culminated in a confrontation with the origin of chakra itself. Along the way, thousands died. Identities shattered. Truths were rewritten. And yet, when the dust settles, what saves the world is not prophecy. It is cooperation, not destiny, but choice. As the survivors look upon a sky finally free of illusion, the moon once again just a silent rock rather than an all-seeing eye, there is no triumphant anthem, only wind moving across broken stone, only the slow, uncertain steps of people who must now rebuild without the convenience of hatred to unify them. The tragedy of the Fourth Great Ninja War is not merely the scale of destruction. It is the revelation that so much of it was engineered by forces long dead, exploiting fear and pride generation after generation. and the quiet hope that perhaps, finally, that cycle has been broken. For now, the world is awake. And that, after everything, is enough.